Greetings, Internet. We're going to continue on the kick drum today, moving on to equalizing the kick. And again, this is a reggae song called Been Around. Recorded it years ago, and we're just going to cover the EQ section, sort of go over some principles and just my approach to EQ on kick drums. This is a pretty modern sound, so really sort of low end and top end heavy. Let me show you where we started on the kick and where we ended up. And here's the kick we ended up with just with EQ. Here's where we ended up after compression. All right, we won't go over the compression today. Well, actually, I might change up EQs just to sort of show principle because this is several things in one that I'm doing here. All right, so first up on the EQ, you'll see first couple plugins I have here are actually a gate. I went over this on another video. So we're going to leave that on. We'll use the REQ6 and we'll bring up that equalizers again later. So the first thing I will do on my EQ or really any percussive instrument is find my fundamental frequency first. You can do that pretty much by just hitting play here. And sort of look where you spike around. See how there's this little decay right there where that peak is. It's about 64. I went through earlier, and you can see down here, I actually type them down in my notes where my fundamentals are. It's 65. So the first thing I'll do on a kick EQ is sort of do general shaping. And then after that, I'll do a little more like really precise notch cuts and things like that. So the first thing I'll do is I'll take the second band, put that right where my fundamental is. And the reason I do that is then I'll bring in a high pass. I'll sort of bring it up to where that curve just doesn't quite hit that 65. That way I know I'm cutting a little bit out of the low end, just some rumbliness I don't necessarily need, and just clears that out just a little bit. It's not doing a whole lot that you're noticing. Just like if you have a sub or something on, just a little bit of rumble that, you can sort of clear out. The next thing I do is most of the stuff getting in the way of the sound, especially in this kick, it's just muddy and just, sounds like I'm stomping on a piece of cardboard, is your frequencies in the low mids and lows right above your fundamental. And we'll sort of go from there. I usually go low frequency to high frequencies on my adjustments and really just start focusing on pulling things down and out of the way. So if you hear just a lot of low end, you actually see a spike around, 130? So what I'll do is I'll take this first big cut, bring that down, actually narrow it a bit, see how it's pulling on that fundamental. So I'll take the bandwidth and just sort of bring it up. Same thing, I'll do another one about right here. You see the low end just feels a little more in control. I'll tighten that up a bit more. Okay, now you hear it sounds a little more tacky. There'll be frequencies around right here. Actually, be the 5th and 6th band, so if I pull this out. That's much better. But let's see what happens if I actually just go around 500 here. Wind this out. Then same thing. Switch this to a bell. And now, so what I just did here is you can actually see where all these frequencies sit. But I'm just sort of clearing out frequencies that are just pulling up above that fundamental that are getting in the way. And now, since I've done that a little bit, I'm actually going to bring up the fundamental a bit. So what I'm doing, especially with a kick drum, it'll be easier if I have the equalizers up. On a drum, any drum whatsoever, so this is my frequency window, 20 to 20. So your drum is several things all at once. Obviously, you're filling out a lot of low end in that mix where all your mid-range here, a lot of it's going to be taken place or taken over by a lot of your other instruments. So your bass guitar is going to sit up here a little bit more, and just every other instrument, is just going to be all over the place in here. So your kick drum really, or your drums, is going to be shaping right in here this area, and then, you know, add a little bit of flourish on the top end, which you won't even see on a meter all that much until you get to your overheads. But really, you're building on, you know, as they say, the foundations of your mix, but you're really, really building into the low end. So what I'll do is just clear out just that mid-range that I do not need. It's going to be taken up by another instrument anyway. And what's going to be cutting through the mix is this low end and some little character and air and little tack and on the top end. So what I want to be cutting through that mix is the sound of that, just the thump of that kick. So what I'll do is I'll narrow this a bit more, bring that back up to 65. So we've already got a high pass. We're just going to start notching frequencies that I don't really like. Zoom that out a bit. All right. So I want to clear out the spot right above the fundamental a bit more. You see a spike now coming right here. Another one right here. So these are just notches that I'm doing. Are they necessary? Not really, but I'm actually going to change that a little bit more. Now I'm actually just going to listen for a second. Now it's overall much better. There's a lot of just a lot of oomph on that kick. So what I'm going to do is the Equalizers has a vintage function. Go to the American Class A, which is a API style compressor, and I'm going to do two things. So I'm going to cut some of this mid-range a little bit. We'll say, what, 500 hertz? And just drop that. I'm going to go to this top end and just add a bunch. I'll say, what, 10K? Yeah, maybe higher. Yeah, I can hear too much. See how that shot up? I don't want that so much. We'll bump that to 15. Now, actually, let's go back in here. All right. So that gives me just a lot more oomph and just a lot more sort of attack. It makes it a lot more modern sounding with drum, gets rid of all that gunk in the middle, and give me something I can mix in a little better. And then you add the compressor to that. Let's mix that in with everything else, shall we? Add a little makeup gain on there. We'll just add it with the kick. So you see how that the level is now at -10 pretty much. So for fun, we'll pretend we're not using a compressor, and we'll just bring this up. Yeah, it's a little more usable level. And there you go. So we went from this to that to this. I hope you all learned something. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. We'll move on to a different instrument later. Thank you all very much. Bye.